How many LFOs does the Kijimi have? The answer is at least 2, depending on if you look at the original specs or current firmware notes. It'll say either 2 or 16, but the envelopes also loop. And although envelope 1's only destination is VCA amount, envelope 2 has 4 of its own destinations, and they can do a few things that the LFO section can't. So let's take a look. First, let's talk about the common LFOs. There's 2 of these, and they have 8 destinations each. The 8 destinations are identical for each, and they can be positive or negative or bipolar. The 6 different shapes are sine, triangle, saw, ramp, which is a backwards saw, square, or random. And each of these has a selectable attack and decay section with this button, either one or both. And that can affect either rate or amplitude or both. So that's set to amplitude, so it fades in the LFO. You could also set that to a negative amount so that it would immediately fade out the LFO. And we can go into the menu under LFO options, and then LFO EG dest, change that from amplitude to rate, and it'll speed up, or you could select both amplitude and rate. Or amplitude again. And that amplitude, rate, or both setting can be different for LFO1 and LFO2. Voices can also share LFOs, and you can select whether or not you want to re-trigger LFOs on notes. So using it, maybe you noticed, is very easy, and this is what I love about the Kijimi, is, green, positive, red, negative, both is bipolar, and since you have 2 common LFOs, they each have their own set of controls, so you don't have to, select back and forth. And you have some controls too. LFO rate can be affected by velocity or by aftertouch, so and the mod wheel can also modulate the LFO rate for LFO 1 or 2, and it can modulate the amount of LFO 1 or 2. I wish aftertouch itself could modulate LFO amount for vibrato, but it can't, so sometimes I route aftertouch to CC5 on my controller, which would be the same as LFO 1 amount. So now let's talk about firmware release 1.2. And now this is a huge deal for not only Kijimi owners, but also Kijimi lovers in general. This gives 16 LFOs now, 1 for each destination. And you still have the looping envelopes, of course. And now each of these LFOs has all the functionality of the common LFOs. So you still get all 6 shapes. You can select, different rates, different amounts, bipolar, negative, everything is the same. You still get rate modulation from velocity and aftertouch if you want it, but the only downside is you don't get amount modulation from the mod wheel anymore. And, well, the other downside is it's slower to use. You have to select each one. So to get to this setting, just go to the menu, LFO, and under mod mode, select individual instead of common. And you'll notice these controls here went away. That's because they're on a per LFO basis. So we still have our VCO modulation going. Let's take advantage of this new feature and add in a low-pass filter LFO and give it some different settings. Just hold it down. And if we want to group it with another destination, they can have the same LFO. And in individual mode, you can see the parameters of an LFO from the top section and one from the bottom section at the same time on the screen. It's still a rather slow workflow compared to before, so you can get the editor Baba Frick, which is an awesome program for a lot of reasons, and that will show all 16 LFOs at the same time. And you can still run the LFOs in common mode with the current firmwares, and that's good on a per patch basis. Sometimes you want to use the mod wheel or have a simpler set of controls for everything. So between the two sections, it's just a dream to use the LFOs on this synth. The last thing I'll mention is the looping envelopes. Now these can get you some shapes the LFOs can't, and you have a switch to increase their time so they can get some pretty slow LFOs, and they have the benefit of the KT mode, which gives them slower rates at the lower end of the keyboard and faster rates at the upper end of the keyboard. The downside is they don't have as many destinations, and they don't have any unique destinations. So to summarize, how many LFOs does the Kijimi have? And the answer is at least 2.